if we look at some of the larger issues, obviously the biggest issue which affects all of us is COVID, but now there's a sense of hope. Vaccines are being administered, but are you concerned about the equitable distribution of vaccines all around the world?
I'm very concerned. I think India actually might be relatively better off in that. At least we have an infrastructure for manufacturing vaccines. Whenever a vaccine that's relatively easy to handle, not maybe the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine, but something else, it becomes available, we might be able to license it, and I think even then, of course, we have to worry about who gets it within India. But I think that globally, the rich countries have been buying up all the vaccines that are available. Just right now, all the availability is already, kind of dedicated to rich countries, and that's something that we already know. Then there is the question of, the vaccines that have been developed are not actually suitable for rural India. The cold chains are not going to be easily maintained. So we're really waiting to see how well the Oxford vaccine works. And if the Oxford vaccine works, then since I think we are in a relatively good position to get that. The rest of the developing world is actually in a worse position than we are, because at least the Oxford vaccine is going to be, if it works, or our domestic vaccines work, then we can produce them, and the costs are radically lower for many of those. I mean, there are vaccines that are $27 a dose and vaccines that are $1 a dose. And I think so there is a lot of, that space is complicated, but I mean, we might be actually relatively better off compared to some of the other countries. What we need to think about more is how would we deliver it? We have never vaccinated adults. We say that we're going to do it, but 1.4 billion people, including a whole bunch of adults. And especially with a 2-dose vaccine, I mean, the whole thing we need to start really working on that. I think rather than fighting over many other issues, right. I would say right now we should be extremely focused on elaborating our supply chains, getting sure that the vaccines can be delivered, making sure people understand that it's a 2-dose vaccine and they have to come back and get it. All that needs to be sorted out.
One final question to you. The impact of COVID on your own research, your own life, the fact that you aren't sort of talking to your students inside a classroom, you're talking to them over a machine. How has that affected your own way of operating, Professor Banerjee?
Well, I mean, we do a lot of field studies. That's sort of a immediate casualty of all this. You don't do field studies in COVID times. They're not even so. I mean, it's been interesting because we've also been learning. We've been learning how to do studies when you can't see anybody. How can you interview them? It's all a bit of it's not necessarily all negative, because it creates an opportunity to learn new techniques and new ways of doing. But I think overall it's more the strangeness of the life, the fact that I don't see anybody.